Today I will teach you every trap you need to avoid in E4-E5 positions. This is not going to be an in-depth guide. I'm just going to be showing you basic traps and I'm going to be showing you refutations to these traps, but I'm not going to be going into much depth. Also, every position that you see is going to be in the description of the video. There's going to be a link in the description taking you to a study with all the positions that I'm going to show you today. So with that being said, let's get started with the first one, and it starts after E4, E5, knight to F3. We go pawn to D6. This is the Philidor defense, and then knight to C3, knight C6, bishop C4, and then we go bishop to G4, pinning the knight on F3. And after H3, we play this move bishop to H5. And this is a huge mistake. It's actually a losing blunder because there is this amazing move, knight takes E5. And this is called the Legal's trap. And after a move like bishop takes D1, black thinks, oh, I can take this queen on D1. But that's not really true, because here comes bishop takes F7, and then after king to E7, only legal move, you have to play knight to D5 with a checkmate. So this is not a good thing for the black pieces, but it's very easy to avoid. This is not a difficult trap to avoid. The thing is, if you go bishop to G4 and they play H3, you can simply take the knight, or you can even retreat back to E6, and this is just a very nice position, and the game goes on from here. You're not winning with the black pieces, but you avoid the trap and the game goes on. The next trap I want to show you is in the elephant gambit, which is after knight to F3 in this position, after E4, E5, knight F3, black plays this move D5. And when black plays this move D5, what black is hoping for is that we take on D5, they go E4, and we go knight to D4. And after queen takes D5, knight to B3, they have this very cheeky move, queen E5. And what queen E5 does is that it lines up the queen with the king, so it makes it difficult for you to push any pawns, because if you push this, you're going to get discover checked, and you can't do that. So basically you develop your bishop on E2 and castle, but black also develops attacking the pawn on H2. You block the threat with G3, but now black gets a very nice attack. This is not winning for the black pieces with correct defense. However, it is very uncomfortable and we can do much better than this. So going all the way back, instead of actually going knight to D4 in this position, there are a couple of things you can do. You can actually capture the pawn on E5 right away. But if you capture the pawn on D5 instead and they go E4, you can play this move queen to E2. Now after queen E2, you're pinning this pawn. If they take on D5, now you have knight C3 with a fork here. You have a double attack on the pawn on E4. So most likely they will go knight F6, knight F3, and this is something that might happen. We capture on F6 and then we go D4. The reason why we don't want to maintain this pawn is because if we go C4, there's rook E8. We lose the queen. So we have to go D4. You should probably give up one of the pawns. Remember that in this position, you're up 2 pawns. So give back one of the pawns so you can develop D4. And if they go rook to E8, then you go bishop to E3, blocking this threat. Queen takes D5. Now you want to queenside castle, but you run into queen takes A2, which is not good. So instead of queenside castling, you play this move queen B5, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. If black wants to avoid the queen trade, black will go back, but now you can safely queenside castle with a very good position. There's just one more line that I want to show you, so let me go all the way back here. Instead of pushing the pawn to E4, black has another option, which is taking on D5. In this case, you will go knight to C3, and then if queen goes to C5, you will strike in the center with D4. And even though you might not be up material in this specific position, you have this knight to B5 move, which attacks the pawn on C7. It's very difficult to deal with, because if you go queen B6, you run into bishop E3. And this is just very uncomfortable if the queen goes here. You can even go bishop f4. You can attack this pawn twice. The best thing to do is actually to go bishop to d6 here by black, but then you capture it, and even though you're not up in material, you have the bishop pair, and black has this weakness on d6 which you can exploit, and you just have an amazing positional compensation for the pawns that you gave back, pretty much. So you have a very nice positional advantage. Black has a weakness, and this is a very nice position for white. The next trap that I want to talk about is the trap in the Halloween gambit. So in this position, white takes the pawn on e5, and we simply take back, and they go d4. Now what white wants us to do, and this is the trap, white wants us to go back to c6, and after d5 we have to go back, and after e5 either we have to play queen e7, but we probably have to go back in this case as well. And this is just a very uncomfortable position, because when white plays like this, they can go d6, and this blocks out the bishop, but it also controls this c7 square. So after a move like knight to c6, white has this knight to b5 move, and this is already completely lost for the black pieces. You have to be a little bit careful with black. You can't, or sorry, with white, you can't easily jump to knight c7. You shouldn't do it immediately, but it's still a very strong position for the white pieces, and it's not something that you want to deal with. This is a constant threat, and it's pretty much impossible to defend, or if you defend it, then you lose some other stuff. You queenside castles, knight takes a7, and so on. So instead of this, what you want to do in the Halloween gambit, let me go all the way back here. Instead of bringing the knight back to c6, you should bring it to g6 instead. And after a move like e5, yes, you go back. Let's say white plays bishop to c4. Now you need to play this move c6 with the idea of playing d5 to block out this bishop. Queen to f3, threatening checkmate here. We go d5, en passant, opening up the bishop, and now we go bishop to e6. And even though after takes and queen e2, this is a weakness, but you don't necessarily want to defend it. You can just capture on d6, and if white takes it, that forces a queen trade. Remember that white took the pawn on e5. White sacrificed the piece. So even if you give the pawn back, at the end of the day, you're still up a piece. And again, this is a completely winning position for the black pieces. Black has a knight for 2 pawns, which is going to be winning for black. So this is exactly what you should do. So next up, we have this position right here. And the next trap that I want to show you is the Jerome gambit trap. So the Jerome gambit is after bishop takes f7, we take with the king, and knight takes e5. Because white thought that sacrificing one piece wasn't enough, he had to sacrifice both of them. So we take both pieces, we take the knight as well. Queen to h5, and what white is hoping for here is that we blunder, because Jerome gambit is just a refuted opening. It's mostly just a tricky opening. It's not good whatsoever. So if you play a move like king e7, for example, you lose the game. Just like this, king has to move again. Then let's say you take the bishop, you get your 2 pieces back with interest, with the 2 pawns. So you're up 2 pawns in this position with white, and this is not good for the black pieces. So instead of that, we actually want to be brave, and we want to go forward. And here there are 2 moves that white can play, queen f5 and f4. We're going to look at both of them. After queen f5, we just simply, well, we don't want to do that. We just saw what happened, that transposes. We just simply want to run the king. We go king to d6, f4, we go king to c6. We don't mind giving back some material. And this is the concept that you have to learn in order to get better at chess. Whenever you're up in material and you're down in development, it's actually good to give back some of the material in order to catch up in development. If you have more material, you don't necessarily need to hold on to all of it. You can give some of it back in order to get developed. So we just give back 1 piece, queen takes e5, but now we develop. And after d3, now we continue playing b6 to hide our king on b7. King safety also very important, and queen d5 is not possible. The knight covers that square very, very well. and this is just a winning position because white has nothing. There's nothing for the white pieces, and this is a very nice position. Going back though, there's also this move f4 instead of queen f5 check. Here it's very similar. We don't try to defend the knight, we actually give back the knight. Let's say queen f5, we go to e7, queen g5, we go to e8, maintaining the defense of the queen. Queen takes g7, but that's not a problem. We go queen f6, takes on e5, we take back, and we end up once again in a position where we are up a bishop. We gave back some material, but now we have consolidated the position, and there's no threat for the white pieces. Black is simply winning here. Next up, we have the Stafford gambit, which happens in the Petrov defense. After knight to f6 is played, we take on e5, and now instead of playing d6, which is the main move, black plays knight to c6 and gambits everything here, basically. Well, not everything, a pawn. So after knight takes c6, dc6, we have to be very careful. In this position, there are lots of tricks and traps. For example, if you go with a move like knight to c3 and then try to play a move like d3, which looks very natural, you lose to knight g4. If you try to play a move like d3, and let's say after bishop to c5 you go like bishop to e2, there are still some tricks, like this is still winning, but you have to be very, very careful because there are lots of threats, and actually there are multiple lines that win. For example, here you can play queen f3 and then you can go queen g3. This is one of the winning lines, but there's actually also a very, very simple way to deal with the Stafford gambit, and that is to play knight c3 first instead of d3. And when they go bishop to c5, you don't want to play d3, you actually want to play h3. So you control the g4 square, and this way you try to avoid all the tricks that are in the position. There's one thing that you have to be aware of, and that is this move queen d4. After queen d4, there's a checkmate threat, but that can easily be dealt with queen f3. That's a very simple move, defends the pawn on f2, and that's all you need. It also defends the pawn on e4 at the same time, which was under attack. So you're defending both pawns, and let's say queen to e5 is played, or a move like this, hoping for some tactical ideas here with maybe bishop f5 or something. You just continue developing. You go bishop to f4, you go bishop to e2. If they attack the knight, you can always retreat the bishop back to d2, protect the knight, and on the next move you're going to castle and you're going to have a winning position. Next up, we have the Boden Kieseritzky gambit, which is actually just a reversed Stafford gambit. So in this position, white plays this move bishop to c4, we take on e4, and now white plays this move knight c3. So this is actually more dangerous than the Stafford because it's literally the reverse Stafford, except white is the one that's gambiting the pawn, and you have to be very careful because white is up a tempo. So this is also very, very dangerous, and let me show you what you need to do here. Well, first of all, I'll show you the trap. What happens if you play a very natural move, which is d6, just simply defending the pawn? Well, unfortunately, this fails to knight takes e5, and if you take back the pawn, you run into bishop f7. You cannot take because the queen is hanging, so you have to play like king e7, but you still lose the queen. You cannot easily, not easily, but you cannot maintain the queen at all, so you lose, and then you can try a move like queen e7, but the problem is you're still going to get a losing position, even if white gives up this piece. Rook e1, rook e8 is coming, and this is simply just going to be winning. It's checkmate in 8 after like, or actually it's checkmate in 9 from here. I'm not going to show the whole sequence. You guys can look at it on your own, but it's basically a king hunt, and this is just a losing position. So let me show you what you actually need to do. In this position, you have to play only move f6, and this is very, very dangerous, and you have to be very careful here because there are many threats in the position. And let's say white in this position goes knight takes e5. It doesn't work because you have this move queen e7, and on the next move you're going to take this knight, so this just simply doesn't work for the white pieces, this sacrifice anymore. Instead of that, what white can try to do is maybe this move queen to d5. but you will simply stop that with queen e7, white will castle, and now you can go c6, which is a very important move. Queen has to retreat, and now you go d5. So your whole goal here is to build up this huge pawn wall, and once you build this up, then you're going to be completely safe, because you can develop the bishop to e6, move the queen, put the other bishop on d6, castle your king, and you're completely safe. So there are some different move orders here that you need to be aware of. Like, for example, here bishop c5 is a blunder, because a lot of people after castles, they play this move bishop c5, but now knight e5 works, because now queen e7 is just not a good move anymore, because the king is not in the center. And if you take this, you run into queen h5, you run into queen e5, and this is just very, very bad. It's just completely lost for the black pieces. So after castles, after f6 and castles, what you need to play is this move knight to c6. And once again, what white might try to do here is something like rook to e1, d6, very solid move. Queen to d5, you're gonna go queen d7, defend the threat, and then let's say b4 is played. Now you go knight to d8, and now you go c6, and then d5. So once again, you build up this huge wall of pawns, and you kick out white's pieces, and this is going to be a winning position for the black pieces from now on. Next up, we have something that is called the Rousseau gambit, and Rousseau gambit is in the Italian game. And here in this position, instead of playing very typical moves such as knight f6 or bishop c5, black plays this move f5. And after f5, we need to be very careful. So what black wants us to do in this position is to take on f5, because after that they can play e4, and we have to basically jump this knight to the center of the board. Now this might look weird. Can't black just take the knight? Well, not really, because you have queen h5 with devastating effects here, and black has to be very careful. As a matter of fact, black is actually pretty much just lost. You go g7 here, king d8, and I'm very, very shocked that this position isn't even more lost, because you're actually just making a new queen. Okay, black has to take it, but you're going to be up in material at the end of the day. But going back, that's not what black is hoping for here. What black will do in this position instead is they will go knight to f6, and now you take on c6, and black gets a very active position, and black gets some compensation for the sacrificed pawn, which he will win back. He will win back the pawn on f5, and he will have a very solid position. So this is a gambit that's not necessarily that dangerous. Like, you're not going to be completely lost immediately if you know what you're doing, even if you like don't find the best moves. But going back, instead of that, let me actually teach you how to play against this. So against the Rousseau gambit, you don't want to take on f5. Instead, you want to strike in the center with d4. And now after f takes e4, you want to take on e5. Now you got huge threats over here, huge threats with queen to h5. And let's say d5 is played, a very natural move. You move the bishop to b5, queen to f6. And now, if queen f6 is played, which is a very active move, you can take this knight on c6 and then go queen h5, they go g6, and then queen takes d5. And this is just a very nice sort of a pin here. And if they block with the queen, that of course loses very quickly to this, because you lose so much more with black. So you don't want to do that. But if instead of queen f6, they play, let's say, a move like bishop to d7, you have another option. You can take with the bishop this time, and you can go queen h5. So this is still a threat. You have double threat here. So you're threatening to take this pawn on c6 with a fork here, but you're also threatening queen h5. And black cannot exactly stop both of these threats at the same time. So this is a very nice position for white. So when you get to this position, what you need to do is see which threat the black defends. So black is defending queen h5 here. Okay, no problem. We can go for this. Well, queen h5 and then knight takes g6, but you still have this idea of queen h5 and queen takes d5. So this is just a very nice position for the white pieces. Next up, we have the Belgrade gambit, and in this position, we have the 4 knights game here. And here, white plays this move d4. So white is playing this in a Scotch style. And here, instead of just capturing the pawn back or something like something along those lines, white plays this move knight to d5. Now, after knight to d5, there's a trap here, and the trap is that if you take the pawn on e4, white goes bishop to d3, and you play knight to c5. This is all very natural, but this is the trap. After knight to c5, you might be tempted here to take this bishop on d3, which is actually not a good move. If you take this bishop on d3, queen will take back, you go bishop e7, knight takes on d4, and the problem here is that with very good play, white gets a very nice position here with knight to b5 attacking c7. White is very active, and you cannot defend all the threats at the same time. But there is a very easy way to refute this. And let me go all the way back. Instead of capturing on e4, you just simply go bishop e7. You ignore the pawn entirely. You go bishop e7. If white takes on e7, that's actually bad for him because now he cannot defend the pawn on e4. That's just going to be lost. So you don't want to do that with the white pieces. And after bishop to e7, bishop to f4, attacking the pawn on c7, you defend it. Knight takes d4, and you just castle. So basically, you just develop your pieces, and that's also going to be another common theme in refuting these sorts of openings where your opponent sacrifices some material. Sometimes you can just, once again, give the pawn back in order to gain some activity and to develop your pieces. So in this position, let's say knight to b5 is played, attacking c7. We just get rid of one of the attackers of c7. We jump the knight to e5, and we get a very nice position. Knight g6, bishop g3, bishop f6, and knight has to go back. And this is going to be equal. Computer says it's slightly better for the white pieces, but you have successfully equalized at the bare minimum. You have avoided all the traps, and now you have to play chess. Next up, we have to refute the Latvian gambit. So in this position, the Latvian gambit is this move pawn to f5. Now, I don't really understand the purpose of this move with the black pieces, because if you want to go for a gambit with black, this is, in my opinion, probably one of the worst options, because there are not that many traps, and you can easily stumble into a winning position by accident with the white pieces. So I don't really get the purpose of the Latvian gambit. I guess the trap here is that if white plays this move d4, which looks very natural, after f takes e4 and you take on e5, there's knight f6, and I guess black just develops very, very simply. Okay, bishop to b4, and then apparently bishop b4, bishop e7 is what the computer wants. That's, of course, not very natural. Let's say bishop to e7, castles, castles, and apparently this is equalish, slightly better for the white pieces. However, this d4 move is not so good here, because if we make a comparison, let's say we go back to this one. This is the Rousseau gambit. Here, d4 worked. Why? Because after a move like f takes e4, we took on e5, we always have the option of capturing on c6. So this knight isn't really getting bullied out of this position, and also you have knight f7 threats, so it works sort of both ways. You have many threats, and you can always trade this knight off if something happens. So with d5 here, you always have some of these options. But going back in the Latvian gambit, it's a little bit different because there's no knight on c6 and there's no bishop on c4. So d4 is not as good of a move here as it is in the Rousseau gambit. But you have other options of dealing with this move f5, and you just take the pawn on e5. And after you take the pawn on e5, let's say they go knight to f6, what you want to do is just develop. Now, you have to do this in a very specific move order. For example, if they go queen f6 and attack your knight, you go d4 first, and then you go bishop to c4. If they go bishop c5, it's better to start with d4 because it comes with a tempo, and then you go bishop c4. If they start with a move like d6, then you have queen h5, so this is a huge threat. That's why knight to f6 has to be played here, stopping this queen h5 move. And here after bishop to c4, let's say queen to e7 is played. Once again, you go d4, protecting the knight. Knight to c6, and here you just castle. So basically, once again, we see the same concept. You give back some material, but you develop very quickly, and your opponent's position is very uncomfortable. Black plays this move d5, a very natural move. You go back to b3, and now what you want to do is you want to challenge this center. You want to play c4. So let's say bishop to e6, adding another defender to the pawn on d5. You go c4, gambit this pawn, and then you go bishop a4. So this is a maneuver that you have to remember in order to get an advantage in this position. You go c4 to challenge the center, and then you go bishop to a4. Because now, let's say black tries to bishop to d7 first, knight c3, and then queenside castle. So black tries to be very solid. The problem is we just take on c6, and we take on c6 again. And now look at this king, look at these horrible pawns. Yes, we gave up this pawn on c4, but that's not an issue because now we have a semi-open c-file. It's going to take forever to take all the pawns over here, but it's still very good. And this king is still very weak. We can also go queen a4, go after the pawn on a7. We can go queen a6 check after we do that. So this is just a very, very nice position for the white pieces. It's better and more accurate to start with rook to c1, just to start building up pressure on the c-file. But once again, this is just a very good position for the white pieces. And all of that happened because we played this move c4. This is a very nice move in order to destroy black's center and absolutely ruin black's pawn structure. So next up, we have the Frankenstein Dracula trap. So what is the Frankenstein Dracula trap? After knight to c3, we go knight to f6, white plays bishop to c4, and we take on e4. Now, after we take on e4, what we are hoping for as the black pieces is that white will take on e4, and then we will go d5, so we get this pawn fork. And after a move like bishop to d3, okay, we're gonna take the knight, of course, and then we're gonna go f5, and let's say bishop goes back to f3, and then we're gonna continue developing with bishop d6, castles, and so on. We're gonna play e4 at some point, and this is just a very nice position for the black pieces. Black has good development, good central control. White has the complete opposite, bad development, bad central control, actually no central control at all. So this is just a very nice position. But instead of that, what white will do here, after knight takes e4, white thinks to himself, okay, I'm gonna lose one of the pieces, so I might as well sacrifice my bishop on f7, and after black takes, then I'm gonna take on e4. But the thing is, this simply does not work, but you have to be careful. Because if you go with a move like knight to c6 here, and let's say queen to f3, and you go king g8, you actually just completely lose. Because now there's this move knight to g5, threatening checkmate. And after you go queen e7 or even queen f6, it doesn't matter. There's queen d5 with the checkmate. Queen has to block, and then you mate in one. Well, technically there's queen e6, and knight takes, pawn takes. So you survive checkmate, but you're gonna be down a queen. So this is not good. So instead, what you want to do here is, instead of playing a move like knight to c6, you want to start with d5. So you want to attack the knight immediately. And now, if white tries the same thing, queen f3, king g8, and knight to g5, it just simply doesn't work anymore because this pawn is on d5. And you can play this only move, by the way, you can play this move, queen d7. Defending f7, maintaining defense on the d7 pawn, on the d5 pawn at the same time. And this is just a very nice position because on the next move, you can kick the knight out of here, and then you can go c6, you can develop the bishop, you can go queen f5 at some point. You have many, many options. Queen f5, you still have to be careful. Queen f5 after you guard the pawn. So you have to be a little bit careful, but you can easily consolidate this position and you're going to be winning with the black pieces.